Hello and welcome to Bites of Ingenuity, a Siren podcast exploring innovative approaches to solving today's toughest challenges. I'm your host, Nick Newsom, and for this episode, we're in Jordan, a country recognized as a global GovTech leader and whose monarch, King Abdallah II, has ambitions to turn it into a regional hub for entrepreneurship and innovation. But the stakes are high. Jordan faces a complex set of challenges: high youth unemployment, sluggish growth, and significant pressure on public services due to limited natural resources and the responsibility of hosting a large refugee population. Now, in June 2022, the government launched its economic modernization vision, an ambitious reform program that aims to increase income per capita by 3% per year and bring 1 million more young people into the labour market by 2033. And the government is betting on digital transformation as a key piece of this puzzle, aiming not only to streamline public services, but also to drive job creation, attract investment, and boost economic resilience. So what can other countries seeking to use their tech sector as an engine of economic growth and job creation learn from Jordan's experience thus far? And where can development partners best focus their support to accelerate Jordan's progress towards efficient, trust-building, tech-enabled services? Let's dive in. Today, I'm joined by Amjad Swais, chairman of the trade body representing Jordan's tech sector, Intaj, member of Jordan's National Digital Economy and Artificial Intelligence Committee, and long-time champion of entrepreneurship and innovation. Thank you for joining me today, Amjad.
Thank you, Nick. I'm really glad that I'm here with you today, and I'm excited for our discussion. Hopefully, we will bring across some positive vibes regarding our ICT sector in Jordan.
Absolutely, and I think a lot to celebrate. And if we look back to the early 2000s, it's clear that Jordan has had a really positive vision for the role that tech can play in driving economic growth and job creation. And it's been really central to administrative reform efforts. And I know Intaj has played quite a key role in that. And more recently, Jordan's King Abdullah has set the vision for the country to become a regional tech hub, and in his letter of designation to the current government in September, he reaffirmed the importance of the sector in advancing the country's political and economic modernization. And in particular, he tasked the government to support Jordanian entrepreneurs and grow the ICT sector. So could you give us a rapid overview of what's been done so far to establish the necessary conditions for Jordan to become a regional IT leader?
Yeah, sure. Well, His Majesty, since the onset, he was our biggest supporter for the ICT sector, believing that, the ICT sector is going to be the enabler of the future. If we go back 25 years ago, first Intaj was established in the year 2000, and the plan for Intaj was to be the private umbrella for the ICT sector in Jordan, basically working hand in hand with the government and private sector to ensure that we create for an enabling environment for the sector to grow and flourish and contribute to the economic growth and be, let me say, a pinnacle of technology for the region. So Intaj was established in year 2000, and in those 25 years, we have different verticals that have been grown. If we want to look at Jordan as an entrepreneurship hub, we can see that there has been many efforts during the past 25 years to promote entrepreneurship as a start. We have the first, one of the first funds that was established in Jordan basically was in 2005, which is the launch of the Innovation Fund, Jordan Innovation Fund, basically to support technology, innovation, and commercialization. Then we have Oasis 500 in the year 2010. We have the ISSF that was established in 2017 with one objective: to support the entrepreneurship ecosystem and the startup ecosystem in Jordan, because those startups and entrepreneurs will be part of forming the future of technology in Jordan and the region. Through this period, a lot of funds has been established. A lot of laws has been regulated to ensure that we have a proper enabling environment. That has been a journey, but I think we've had many great milestones. We have a lot to do still, but I think things are progressing beautifully. That's on one end. If we look at another aspect, what happened in Jordan during the last 25 years when it comes to infrastructure, we were literally, you can say we were advanced in promoting telecom infrastructure in Jordan. We have the 4G since 2012, 2013. Now we have the 5G. We have one of the most advanced telecom infrastructure in the region. If we can look for the last couple of years, we have the Aqaba Digital Hub, which is also a big milestone to provide corporates with the requirements in the IT infrastructure. It's a big data center with advanced technologies, advanced fibers, cloud services, neutral connectivity. And this will support Jordan and its initiatives to grow more in all its verticals. And also it's paved the way for esport and e-gaming in the South as well, which is something that we're very good at. Now we have lots of legal infrastructure that has been developed over the years. And this is basically to promote the growth of this sector, to ensure that, we have a proper enabling environment. As an example, if I want to, we have the cybersecurity law in 2023. We have the AI strategy as well. We have the IoT strategy. We have the data privacy law. We have the venture capital law, the investment law, the recent updates on the investment law as well. Again, we're being proactive in introducing laws that should support the ecosystem. This does not mean that we don't have gaps still, but we're progressing very well in that regard. And year by year, we can see Jordan's rankings across the board are progressing.
So like a really solid base to leverage to position Jordan as a regional player and a regional leader at that. And you mentioned the economic modernization vision. And within that, I know that from the short to medium term, the vision sort of wants to leverage that base for Jordan to become a hub for IT outsourcing and really there capitalizing on a global tech worker shortage. So can you tell me a little bit about how Jordan's tech sector has grown in recent years in terms of number of employees and the size of that outsourcing market?
Okay, Nick, let me backtrack a little bit. The outsourcing market worldwide is approximated to $280 billion US. This is a huge market. Yet there are big competition across the board. I do believe in Jordan when it comes to employment in the business process outsourcing vertical. We've more than doubled in the last 3 years. Now we have over 8,000 employees working in various Jordanian and non-Jordanian companies operating through Jordan for business process outsourcing. Even the other day, I was looking at Irbid in the north. We have around 4 or 5 companies that employs over 2,000 people in Irbid. Now, I believe this is a big support for employment in Jordan on the short term. However, since the competition is very high, everybody's trying to tap into this vertical to provide their services. It becomes obvious that, on the medium to long term, we cannot compete with countries that produce to the market hundreds of thousands of skillful employees. We have a lot of the neighboring companies that basically have way more resources than ours. So for it to be sustainable for us in the future, we have either to look into the type of services that we offer to others on outsourcing basis. We have to focus on what we've been excellent for. We cannot go for the agnostic services across the board. Everybody's trying to go into that. And sometimes volume of resources, gets an edge. So we have to make sure that our vision, if we want to have it a sustainable vertical in the future, we have to look for certain cutting edge services that I'm sure we're good at.
What would you say those ones are?
Well, if we look at the international map, we can see that, services that has to do with artificial intelligence, with cybersecurity, with that type of deep tech is something that we need to look into and ensure that we capitalize on this opportunity to build for the future. I think those are the ones that I believe will form the basis of a sustainable vertical in the future. Having call centers in Jordan is good as well. I cannot say that we don't need to have call centers. All what I'm saying is that we need to be agnostic. The companies are free to be agnostic in their services that we want to offer. But as Jordan, we need to push forward as part of a strategic direction. We have to push forward with that type of high-level skills or services rendered through our business process outsourcing initiatives.
Right, so we're talking sort of highly specialized tech services, and I know that in the economic modernization vision, it does call for a special fund to be set up for R&D investment in that. Do you see that fund being used towards deriving Jordan's specialism in that area and in those really highly focused kind of service outsourcing?
Let me tell you something, Nick. I cannot say that R&D is a necessity in this vertical in specific. R&D is a necessity for any country that would like to position itself as a leader in different verticals. So R&D is a major pillar to advance your ecosystem. I was on a visit in Japan last month, and you cannot imagine how much is poured into R&D and the level of collaboration between the private, public, and academia in that regard. Unfortunately, in Jordan, we're lagging in that domain. We have to push more for R&D in IT and in technology, in coming up with our own intellectual properties, services. If let's take the U.S. market as an example. The private sector is the biggest contributor to R&D research. Look at the pharmaceutical industry as an example. It's financed by private sector. We have in Jordan to look up and come up with a formula where we push the private sector to be part of this R&D through academia, and the public sector will need to push for this as well. Will need to allocate funds that will trigger a growth in the concept of R&D is great for Jordan. R&D is going to be one of the key pillars to support a different and unique ICT sector in the region.
Right, so it's more for moving toward Jordan becoming like an exporter of tech products.
We have to, Nick. We have to. Our strategy builds on the concept of Jordan being a platform, okay? In terms of market size, Jordan is a very small country. Yet, I believe I want to say this for the first time, that terminology, but we're compact. We're small in terms of market, but we're compact, meaning that we're agile in ensuring that we can make it happen. So Jordan being a platform will require that, we allow for the creation and innovation and coming up with the new intellectual properties that will add value to you in the future. If we go back in the early 2000s, we can see that a lot of our companies, let me call them the pioneer in the ICT sector, they focused on creating their own intellectual properties. And they've sustained up to this point of time, and they are one of the biggest companies in the region, in relative size-wise. And this only means one thing, that having your own intellectual property and working to enhance it and fine-tune it and sell it and expand on it is basically a key factor to sustain such companies. So we cannot, as good as it sounds that Jordan being a service provider to other countries, yet we cannot ignore the fact that IPs are a major factor in creating that type of value to Jordan that will contribute in higher stakes into the Jordan economy in the future.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that funding for R&D should come from the private sector.
Partially from the private sector, not fully. Okay. There is a governmental role in this as well. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So in terms of attracting that private sector investment, I know that Jordan has done quite a lot already in terms of sort of tax breaks. There's sort of 0% sales tax on IT, 0% export tax, and 5% on IT income tax. Do you see that these are powerful enough incentives to stimulate the level of investment required in R&D and broader sort of product development to set Jordan on that right path to really developing its own IPs and becoming an exporter of tech?
Honestly, no. And I need to separate between two things. The tax breaks that we have, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but we've managed to have an extension on the 2016 tax breaks for the Jordanian IT experts.
Right. Yes, I did.
Now, we have we extended. We have zero tax on income on exports, zero sales tax, zero tax on customs, and still we have the 5% income tax on local sales. Those are very important to attract foreign investments who want to transact and do business in Jordan and through Jordan to regional and international fronts. So this is one aspect where those incentives and tax brackets play a big role in attracting investments, in creating an enabling environment for those companies to work through Jordan. However, when it comes to R&D, I believe there should be a different set of incentives offered to the private sector for them to be more proactive in allocating R&D funds.
What kind of particular incentives would you advocate?
First, we need to work on the culture of stressing on the importance of having an R&D activity in Jordan. But if I want to specifically tackle the issue of incentives, I think we should implement tax brackets on those funds allocated by the private sector towards R&D. There should be a benefit and a support from government that any private sector company that allocates funds to R&D with one of the academic institutions or into, well, probably it might be a private lab. I don't know. There are different models in that. But the idea, if you do that, then you are subject to have those types of incentives for the next 5 years, as an example. There are models, but I cannot say that incentives given to the sector to operate are sufficient to push that sector into moving more into R&D funds. There should be a separate set of laws, regulations, incentives, etc., to promote this sector. And you know what? We have to accelerate this, to be honest. We're lagging in that regard. And it's one of the, you're stressing on you embracing future growth, especially in ICT, if you push forward to more R&D in the country. And we're still far behind in that regard.
So this is an area we can expect to see Intaj advocating more vocally in the future around this.
To be honest, we're pushing for this. Personally, I've been bringing this across any venue that I attend that will have an opportunity to push for this. And again, it's not something that we've come up and we're trying to attribute it to ourselves. That this is a worldwide successful model, and if you want to tap into the future, we cannot keep importing technologies from outside. We have to at least try to create our own. And you cannot do this except with two things: human capital resources and with funds through academia. And that part of the academia is still underutilized. And they are open to it, by the way. We have one of the companies in Jordan. I'm not sure if I can mention its name. But on various projects, this company has been outsourcing projects and funding projects to one of the university students to work and find solutions for them. And it has been very successful. To this date, they have projects over projects, after project. This means something. This means that, our universities and the academic part is able to support, even in lower tier, but eventually you have to start somewhere and then try to grow it. This is a very important thing and that we have to push forward to.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned universities here, because I know that it's really encouraging to hear these success stories. At the same time, I'm aware that there is often worldwide a gap in the market between what skills graduates have when they come out of university and what the labour market requires. And I know Intaj's CEO, Abdallah II, has written an article not so long ago about the inability of SMEs in Jordan to absorb recent tech grads. So why do you think SMEs are struggling to absorb these recent tech grads, and what could be done about that?
Okay, this is a complicated question, but let me say the following. First and foremost, we have a big gap on the curriculum that is provided by universities. Few of them are basically moving towards updating such curricula and the way they promote learning in universities, and the rest is still lagging in that regard. So the curriculum issue is crucial, especially in the ICT sector. Do we need to focus on textbooks? Do we focus on labs, projects, cutting-edge approaches for knowledge transfer to our students? Collaboration between universities and the private sector in terms of internship, having the opportunity for the student while he's on campus to be able to exercise what he's been learning through university in actually companies working on the ground, and he can fine-tune his knowledge as he learns. This is a major issue. And honestly, I believe it's going to take time for us to move past the traditional or classical model of learning in our sector. I can only speak about the ICT sector, but we have over 8,000 students being graduated to the market every year under different STEM verticals. Why we believe, or we still find a problem in the private sector to have graduates who require less upskilling and training? He's a fresh graduate. He should come, he needs to understand the culture, he needs to understand the product, but he should be productive from day one. We have, to be honest, we have lots of resources who are very productive and they are very well equipped to directly start working in the private sector. But we cannot ignore the fact that, a lot of our graduates yet need upskilling programs to be able to produced effectively and be part of the production process in the ICT.
And I know that Intaj is quite active in that already with student placements, partnerships with universities, bridging the gap between education and the private sector. Why would you say universities are lagging in terms of updating their curricula? Why are they not able to update their curricula with the pace that technology is evolving?
Part of it is bureaucracy, part of it accreditation, part of it maybe resistance, maybe know-how, many factors, and those factors, the magnitude of those factors are different from one university to another. But I know for a fact that they all understand the importance of moving beyond the classical model. The issue is we always have a problem in execution.
Looking now to the public sector, digital transformation can, of course, significantly contribute to economic growth by helping make services cheaper to run and maintain, and improving how people interact with the state and just making government services more efficient. And the economic modernization vision also ultimately sees Jordan exporting its GovTech products to other developing nations as a source of income and contributing to economic growth in that way. And recently, King Abdullah again calls on the government to accelerate citizen service digitization and the broader transformation in government. So where does Jordan stand now in terms of digitizing government services?
Okay, do you know that we have started the Jordan e-government program back in 2000? We were one of the earliest in the region, if not the earliest. Of course, we have many humps during the way. Where we stand now, and according to stats that are published by Ministry of Digital Economy and Entrepreneurship, we have over 1,400 services that have been digitized so far, and there are close to 900 that they promised that they will be done with by end of 2025. But I don't think that this is the only thing that we need to do, because we have to look into our services and look at where we can re-engineer them to create efficiencies and being more effective in providing such services, whether to individuals, to the public, or to the business sector. I cannot assume that if I automated the process that I'm fully digitized. Otherwise, again, sorry for the lack of a better term, you cannot have garbage in, garbage out. It has to be re-engineered. We have to look at how we can enhance those processes and for that enhancement to reflect on the ledger of Jordan, the economy and individuals. And I believe and according to the economic vision and the government, they are serious now in creating those initiatives to go back and look at the 1,400 services that have been automated and see how we can work on re-engineering part of them so they can be fine-tuned and have better impact on Jordan. Now, when it comes to us exporting our services outside, what has happened recently that we're exporting our resources who are expert in digital transformation to other countries, and they play an integral part in digitizing the government activities in other countries. We're very proudly those stories are Jordanian, behind the Jordanian employees. But when it comes to exporting those governmental services, I think this is something that we need to look at and see what we can package of those services and look where the target audience for us would be after we have finished that milestone of us being ready to export those services. I'm not saying that we can't. Actually, this is a very good perspective of looking at our government services, but we have a lot to do.
Right, there's a lot to sort out internally first,
before being able to package a product, and to be fair, if you look at the Sanad application, it's one of the best in the region.
Yeah,
one of the best in the region.
I know it's been downloaded at least 3 million times.
Yes,
and
yes.
Has how many services are now on it? At least
400, something like that. 400 plus.
Monumental task.
Yeah, it's one of the best, very good user experience. But again, it's a matter of all in.
So when we're talking about re-engineering services as well as digitizing them, what is the role of the private sector in doing that, and how is it collaborating with the government? And is that led by Modi, the Minister of Digital Economy?
Of course, it's led by Modi. Now, what's the role of the private sector? The private sector should be the party that executes the digital transformation. The government I think the government role should be to enable such companies to work and automate hand in hand with the private sector. I think we have to look at the process that we follow differently, to be honest. Usually the services, they don't exist on a standalone basis. They don't sit in silos. Most of the time you can have a service that is shared between different governments, different ministries, different public associations. We have to look at it on a macro level and see who are the intersecting parties that use that service, and see where we can eliminate, where we can make a fine tune, where we can look at it differently and come up with a new process that's more efficient, more complete. As an example, we cannot assume that, digitizing the company certificate in the company control department, that you can issue it now digitally. Okay. But if you want to submit it to the Ministry of Justice, and as an example, it has to be notarized. And notarizing this, you have to visit the CCD in order for you to have it stamped. It defeats the purpose. Otherwise, why do I need to use Sanad as an example?
Right, yeah.
I'm better off just visiting the CCD and have it printed there and stamped. So we have to look at in a more holistic approach for the services that we are introducing. Again, I need to acknowledge all the efforts that has been put so far. In the last 4 years, 5 years, we've worked probably 90% of what has been done in the last 20 years in terms of digitizing services. But again, we're always looking for better implementations, for better way of or approaches of offering such services to the targeted audience. And I think there is a good opportunity in having a lot of such services fine-tuned. Yet we need a more collaborative model between the private and public sectors to overcome a few of the obstacles that prevent us of being able to do this effectively.
So if I'm to paraphrase or summarize, you'd like to see the private sector playing a more active role, or being enabled to play an active role in helping the support or supporting the government to streamline those processes or re-engineer them and bring the different stakeholders together to think of, exactly about the user flow and how to design the services around that. So there's a strong will there for stronger collaboration. It seems that there's still more to be done. And I know that, again, going back to the economic modernization vision, it calls for procurement processes to be improved to enable better private sector competition. And this caught my eye because globally, I know that one of the challenges government face when digitizing services is, clunky procurement processes. And governments often over-specify what they need. And the voluminous requirements make it such that only the largest companies can really compete and put in a bid. And this also means that product is developed over a really long time frame, which doesn't lend itself very well to changes in the politics, to the tech, the policies, the regulation. So what would you say is being done at the government level to improve procurement processes? And has there been progress towards a more competitive, agile tendering process where large projects are broken down into smaller contracts that more companies can bid on?
Okay, Nick, allow me to answer this question differently. I will tell you what I want as a private sector who looks forward to a better provisioning of private sector services to the government. If you want to tender anything through the government, bring the private sector, bring the public sector or the party involved onto a round table and make sure that you clarify the problem and have them feed in to you to support, to identify the problem first, the causes of the problem, possible solutions, and what can be done. Then let's proceed to writing the tender or the RFP. I think this will clarify a lot of misconceptions during the way. Most of the inquiries that we send when it comes to requirements of tenders, this point does not make sense. We cannot understand this point. How can this work with X, Y, Z? Why do we have to go through that process? Let's, all of us, make sure that we understand the requirements and the potential, and then we issue an RFP. This will help a lot in establishing the tender, in writing the technical specification without overcomplicating things. We don't want to overcomplicate. We need to ensure the minimum viable requirement and ensure that there is a proper governance model. And let's proceed, because there are a lot of factors that play a role in successful completion of any project that nobody can be 100% aware of during writing the RFP. But if you get those involved parties, both of them, private and public sector, on a table, and you discuss this, probably a lot of those will be broken down in advance. That's one. The second thing, what I look forward as a private sector, the government should be my first client. If you need me to grow outside Jordan, okay, it will make a big difference showing that my government, where I'm established, was my first client. So I need to have a preference as a local company, local partner in Jordan over foreign companies. So I'm not misunderstood. I'm not saying we need to stop having foreign companies submit for that RFP. All what I'm saying, we need to have a proper governance in that regard. As an example, I should give more preference to local companies who are able to perform, two underlines, able to execute such projects. If there are certain skill set that does not exist in the local market, then I have to ensure that any foreign company that needs to come and work in Jordan should work under the umbrella of a local company, not the other way around. We need to have our companies be part of execution of that RFP. And it has to be very clear. And there are models how to make that clear. We have very successful models. I need to make sure that at least I need to focus on supporting my other ecosystem companies. If you are a foreign consultant and you need to submit for this RFP, when you come to Jordan, you have to use my national carrier, as an example. Those are basic things, but it means a lot. It creates a lot of pride in using my resources as Jordan. So I need to be treated equally. I need to have, not equally, even I need to have a preference. You need to allocate higher points as a starting point for local companies, more so than the same offer to international companies. And if there is a lack of skill set in Jordan and we need to attract foreign companies, that's fine. That's fine. But we have to have a minimum expectations of how to engage a local companies in Jordan. And it has to be very clear. I look forward as a private sector for a proper and timely receiving of projects and clearance and payment of executed projects. This is a very big issue, which is timely payment and signature on delivering a project that extends endlessly, and it's not proper to the ecosystem or to companies who basically they pay in advance to execute the project, but wait for a long time to be paid. So those 3 or 4 issues, if I can work on them, I think we would have surpassed a lot of the gaps that exist in any procurement process.
You've talked just now about strengthened collaboration from the get-go, from the moment of setting the requirements, understanding needs. And I know that in an article last year, Nidal Vital, again, Intaj's CEO, he wrote on an article on why most transformation initiatives fail, or why they often fail. And he sort of emphasized, if I can paraphrase him as such, the role of product managers who are responsible for managing that relationship between vendors and the public sector, and basically ensuring that there is a shared understanding about what needs to be built, why, for whom, and like how to prioritize items in delivery. Where do you see the need for this product management capability to be built? Is it something within the private sector? Is it within Modi? Is it in client ministries, or more broadly across government?
Honestly, it doesn't matter, Nick. You have to have a product manager, whether it's from the private sector or the public sector. You have, for each product or each group of products that relates to each other, you have to have somebody who's responsible to ensure that a proper understanding is there between all stakeholders of that project, to ensure that all aspects have been considered in executing such project, and to follow up on matrices and KPIs and milestones, and make sure that there is an escalation procedure in place, and there is governance procedure in place, and there is contingency plans. God forbid something went, off charts, or not off charts, extremely the opposite, below charts. So it doesn't matter. You have to have, not even in governmental projects, in any company, if they want to execute a project, there's a project manager for the project. Why? Because there is a reason of having somebody who's ensuring that, all components are taken care of within that project. And again, when we say product manager, he should embrace the issue, and he should be understanding all the factors leading to that issue and how to solve it. And he can be the liaison between different stakeholders when he needed to. Again, there is a rule in management, one point of reference. So there should be one first line to talk to. If something happened, there should be a first line to ensure that if he witnessed something bad happening, that he can pinpoint it and make sure it's progressing. Again, execution is we know our problems, we know how to solve them, we know what the objectives that we want to achieve. Yet a lot of lack of achieving is attributed to execution. So product managers may play a big role in solving a lot of execution problems that we have.
I know that globally, another transformation blocker is resistance to change. And I'm wondering, as the chair of Intaj, have your members reported sort of internal headwinds resisting change when it comes to digitizing government services and re-engineering them?
Well, that's a fact, Nick. It's not my opinion. And it's acknowledged in the private sector and in the government sector. But I think this is normal. The question is, what are we doing to ensure that we have the minimum resistance? Are we providing for a proper awareness sessions to involve stakeholders? Resistance sometimes is a result of not knowing. Sometimes it's a result of fear. Sometimes it's a result of not having the right people in the room. This is the question. This is a change management.
Absolutely.
is science.
This is what I wanted to get at. So what are the components of that change management? You mentioned communication,
awareness, upskilling programs, showing the impact on workers' life, and how can they, by the time saving that they achieve, how can they be more proactive in solving other problems or even achieving better results?
Right, so they really have to be convinced that this is going to help them in their work and that they're going to benefit from it.
100%. 100%. And this is something that's usually overlooked. And there are a lot of strategies that can be implemented to overcome such issues. And I think our government is very serious towards implementing few of them to ensure that we are in sync as a private public sector and we all understand. First, what is it for me? Because that's number one question, to be honest. What's in it for me? People usually are fearful of losing their jobs. They are fearful of causing a chaos because they don't understand the full cycle and how it will contribute to the efficiencies of any entity, whether governmental or private. So I think there is a deep understanding of how important is this by our government, and there are real planned initiatives, I believe, to overcome this. Let me give you an example. I vice chair the Artificial Intelligence Steering Committee in the Ministry of Digital Economy and Entrepreneurship. From the onset of creating this initiative, we've commissioned one of the private companies here to do an analysis of the readiness of government into introducing relevant AI projects. And one of their KPIs was basically to understand the internal culture, the skill sets of staff working in governments, and also to deliver training and awareness sessions for relevant stakeholders. So we realized the importance of this, because if you want to make sure that you implement projects successfully, you have to have everybody contributing to that project with all having the same objective and same vision and understanding of how would this enhance our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that study up because it was something I wanted to mention that, we've talked about a few headwinds here or common obstacles or challenges governments generally around the world face in terms of digitizing their services and re-engineering them. But I wanted to just mention that, actually Jordan is a global GovTech leader. It's among 69 economies ranked very high on the World Bank's GovTech Maturity Index. And on that AI study, I'm not sure if we're referring to the same one, but there was one in 2023 by the Oxford Insights. It was sort of 55 out of 993 countries.
That's the index.
Yes.
No, I actually refer to an actual study commissioned by Moody.
Okay.
To understand the status of AI in the government. Should we implement artificial intelligence projects? Would such skill sets be sufficient to sustain it? And if not, what are the gaps and what needs to be done? Of course, they studied as well many other aspects, including the infrastructure, the laws and regulations, underlying laws and regulations, etc. But again, you will be shocked that we have good skills. There are gaps.
I'm not shocked, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's evident from the services you see actually.
But this does not mean that we don't need awareness, because you will require a lot of change management activities for AI to be smoothly implemented.
Yeah. For sure, like there's a lot of opportunity for AI to improve government efficiency, improve the way that it delivers services to citizens, whether it's through chatbots or using computer vision to accelerate document digitization or whatnot. Like, where do you see?
Not only that, Nick.
Yeah, so this is what I want to ask. Like, where do you see?
It's basically help you planning. You know, AI can bring you as simple as a dashboard for factors that were impossible for you to collect or predict in time for you to take a decision. As an example, we're implementing one of the products with NIPCO in Jordan. AI will help NIPCO basically to understand the demand and supply of energy, so it can help them plan. Currently, it's done supposedly manually, and it's taking a lot of time with precision level that's below par. Imagine if you can do that by the hour or by an interval of 15 minutes or 10 minutes with higher level of accuracy. Do you know what that can, what's the impact of that on Jordan as economy? It will allow you even to create a lot of cost efficiencies, a better allocation of input to create energy. I'm talking about gas and it will create a saving and allow for more cognitive decisions, because you're able to think now. You have more time, you have a better set of data that will allow you to make more decisions. So the impact is going to be huge. Imagine this happens across various activities in the government. Look at it. If we look at agriculture as an example, on traffic, it's going to have a huge impact.
So you see AI adding most value within the public sector, at least initially, in the terms of data analysis and planning and forecasting, to paraphrase.
One aspect of looking at it, of course. I cannot deny, I cannot exclude, you've mentioned chatbots, etc. We're thinking of looking at one of the large language models implemented in Jordan, because you have to have a system where you can find all the answers to your questions that you have. Well, I cannot say much yet on it. It's still being analyzed and studied within the steering committee. But yes, you have to have that interface, that layer of intelligence, system intelligence, let me call it, of that system intelligence that will support all activities or most activities that are performed by the government, and allow them time to manage rather than only executing.
It's very clear there's a lot of work being done to make sure the government is ready to adopt these new technologies and to bring people along with them. Based on the experience you've had so far, or Jordan's had so far in digitizing, do you feel that people are buying into the government's vision in terms of digitization and eventual AI adoption? Does the public see the benefit of it and sort of trust the government to do it in the right way?
I cannot say that we don't see the benefit of it, whether we're private or public sector. That's going to be an unfair statement. But when you start executing, that's a different story. Again, we have to create awareness within the government entities about the benefit of digital transformation in general. If you need them to fully subscribe to it, to realize the importance of being digitized, the importance of re-engineering certain processes, the impact that we can create down the line, the better lifestyle we can offer our citizens and our corporate sector across the board, and on the employee himself or herself, we have to have those awareness sessions for them to realize the benefits. But to say that they do not know the impact, that's going to be an unfair statement. They realize the impact, but we have to channel it properly. Right. We have to show the impact in more, what they call it, clear output.
I'm sure that the MENA ICT Forum next week is a good opportunity to really demonstrate that and bring people along with this vision. And I expect we'll have more chance to discuss these topics in depth there. Before we wrap up, can you tell me a bit about the theme of this year's MENA ICT Forum and what are the things you'll be following most closely there?
We decided for this year's version of the MENA ICT to be different. We've talking, most of our session here today about collaboration, how ensuring that everybody works together and we have the same objective, in order for us to promote Jordan. The theme for this year is synergy and innovation. We need to navigate the future of ICT in the MENA region. The way we thought about it is, in order for us to be able to support the progress of the ICT in the region, we need to collaborate, as a MENA region, on all aspects that have to do with ICT. Every country has its strengths and weaknesses. There are things that we know as Jordan we can be good at, and things that, we don't have a competitive advantage in. There are major issues. In order for them to be solved, they require the collaboration of all of us to make sure that we come up with innovative solutions and overcome such problems. There is a macro objective for us as Arab countries to be on the map of technological advancements worldwide. All of those factors plays a role, and we believe we need to be proactive in this as Intaj. That's why the theme of this year's MENA ICT Forum is the synergy and innovation, and how can we collaborate as a MENA region countries in promoting the ICT sector forward. I look forward, to be honest, to have, attendees across the Arab world and the international fronts here in Jordan to meet, to discuss, to open markets, to open opportunities, to bring in ideas, come up with innovative solutions, to partner. That's the objective of the forum in general. However, we selected that theme for that exact reason. It has to be the growth of Jordan as on a standalone basis or within the map of the region has to be done in a different mindset, collaboratively, where every country can focus on its strengths and shift its weaknesses to countries where they have a competitive edge in that area, so we can all have a successful Arab stories.
That's a wrap for this episode. I'd like to extend a special thanks to Amjad for his openness and my appreciation for his message of collaboration for shared growth and prosperity. If you made it this far, thanks very much for listening. And if you enjoyed the episode and are planning on coming down to the Dead Sea for the MENA ICT Forum on the 20th and 21st of November, please drop by and say hi. Otherwise, if you found value in our conversation, we'd greatly appreciate a 5-star rating and a thoughtful review. It really helps us reach a wider audience. I'd also like to mention that Siren has just launched a new website at sirenanalytics.com, so check it out if you're curious to learn more about our work. This episode was produced by me, Nick Newsom, with research support from Kim Mashdalani. Till next time, take care.